Hey guys, I hope you can hear me. We're just gonna wait a little while, just so everyone joins in, and then we will start right away. Okay, yeah, let's get started. Thank you guys, everyone, to joining on a Saturday evening to learn about Git and GitHub with Duolearn. So, what is Git? This is like one of the most crucial things in software development, if I could say, because I honestly cannot imagine a single day in my life as a developer to work without Git. It's that important to know Git well, and that's how much it is helpful in your day-to-day development life as well. So Git is created by Linus Torvalds, the same person who also created Linux. So that's probably the reason why you will see most Linux come pre-installed with Git. So before we get started, I hope you do have Git installed in your machine. If not, you could head to Git. Just Google Git, and you will see a place to download GitHub. Sorry, Git. Let me show you. Okay. It seems I was in mute, so I will have to start from the beginning now. So what I was saying is, yeah, First of all, thank you guys for joining in on a Saturday evening with me to learn Git and GitHub. So one of the things I would first address is that Git is like a very crucial part of being a software developer. I honestly cannot imagine a single day in my life as a developer to work without Git. It has become that important now. So yeah, another thing is that Git is also created by Linus Torvald, the same person who created Linux. Uh, so that's probably the reason why you will see Linux or Git come pre-installed in most Linux distributions. So yeah, first before we get into how Git works and learn some commands, some concepts, I would suggest you download and install Git in your machine. So if you're on Mac or Linux, you're highly likely to have it pre-installed. If you're on Windows, you'll have to head to your search engine and just search for download Git. And the first result you should see is from gitscm.com. And yep, go ahead and download the Git installer for your machine. So the installation should be pretty straightforward. Just go along with the installation wizard and you will have Git installed in your machine. Once that is done, you should be able to use it on your command line. So yeah. So first thing we will address before getting started is the differences between Git and GitHub. So the primary difference is Git is a standalone software. So it can work on anybody's machine without needing an access to internet on its own. While GitHub is more like a hosting provider for your Git repositories. So Git repositories can be created locally as well. So Git repositories do not mean anything except that it is basically way to store your code, right? That can be referred as repository as well. So yeah, so put it in one line, Git and GitHub are very, very different things, even though GitHub has Git in it. Okay. Now, let's see why do we need Git, right? So imagine you are building a website, let's just say a simple website, right? A landing page for something. And you have multiple people working on it, right? So how would people working together collaborate or do something? So if you do not have Git, this is how one might do, right? They would code something first, let's say first part of the landing page, and then they would zip it and share it with other people in their team, and that team will take that zip, unzip it and do their stuff and share it along others with GitHub. The problem with this is it's a lot of redundant work to share it in the cloud, and another thing is it gets very confusing as your team members keep increasing. You have a lot of these copies of your code essentially lying around, which can lead to a lot of problems going on. So that's why if we have Git, where we can collaborate very efficiently as well. So another thing is the way we can do versioning with it. So say you have code 1, right? And this code has, say, some code that is to show that's the code of your website, and few days later you create another set of code, right? Code 2. Now the only way you could go back to code 1 is if you had a copy of it, but if you did not, there is no way you could go to code 1, right? So what if you had Git, right? If you had Git, you could switch to your older version within just one command. So that's one of the cool things about Git, right? Okay. Yeah, I think we've talked enough about Git and GitHub. Let's start doing it, right? So one of the first things you have to do is do git init in your project folder. So I have this folder on my desktop projects. So I'm going to create a new folder and call it Duolearn site, right? And now I'm gonna cd or go to this folder in my terminal. So you can do that with the command cd. So in my desktop, my projects, and it's in Duolearn. Now we will do git init. So you'll be able to only do this if you have Git installed in your system. So as we spoke earlier, I hope you do have that installed, either pre-installed or that you have installed it in yourself if you're on Windows. So you have to do git init. So it says now that Git repository has been set up. So you can also confirm that if you do, if you just list the files in the folder, you will see a folder named .git. So this is the place where Git stores all of your, or tracks all of your changes basically in this repository. Now what we just did is again, create a repository on our local machine. It's that simple to create a repo on your local machine. Now what we can do now is let's create a simple file, right? Let's create index.html file. So touch is a command you can use on your Unix machines to create files. So after touch, you can give the file name and it will be created. If you see it here, it's created over here. Okay, now I'm going to open this in VS Code. If you do not have VS Code installed, you can go ahead and open with any text editor that you have on your machine. Okay, we have it opened. Cool. Okay, now let's see what Git Log says, Git status. So this command will let you know what is the current status of your local repository, right? So let's see what this says. Okay. So it says we're on branch master. So what is a branch? We will get to that soon. The default one created by Git is the master branch. So it says we do not have any commits yet. And it says there are some untracked files and use git add to include what will be committed. So this is one file that we have created. It is showing that. And it says nothing added to commit, but tracked files present. Use git add to track untracked files. So Git will not track every file that is in the repository unless you mention it to track it. So the way we tell Git, hey, track this file as well for its changes, we have to say we have to add it first. So to do that, we'll do git add index.html. Now we will look at the status again. It says now we have changes to be committed. And what is that change? The change is that we created a new file called index.html. Now commits are like points of state in your repository. So at each commit, the state of your code will be different. That's the idea behind commit basically. So to summarize it again, at every commit, there is a different state of the code. Now to create that state, we have to do commit. So git commit -m. This will give you a message to that commit. So what are we committing, or what should we call this commit or this state of code? So I will say we did add index.html file. So one of the good practices while writing commit messages is to use the imperative language, like add index.html, not like added index.html. So this is the most used practice while committing. So let's do this git commit, and now let's see, let's check the git status. So it says on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean, which means we have done nothing, no changes. So okay, now let's look at another command called git log. If you do git log, it will show you the history of changes that has been done or committed in your repository. So you can see that now it says commit, and this is a hash, commit hash. So this hash is going to be very unique to your repository, going to be unique for each and every commit. And so this is basically how you would identify a commit. And yeah, you will get to see who's the author and what date was it committed and what is the add index.html. So this author thing is already been configured the first time you use Git. So the first time you use Git, it will ask you to set your username and email. So that's how it's able to say who authored it and at what date. And this is the commit message, add index.html. Now let's make another commit, right, where we add a h1 to this. Okay, now if you look at git status again, it will say this file has been modified now. Notice how it doesn't say added or created like it did here, or like, you know, like new file, because now we have modified the index.html. Now let's add that. So every time you want to add something to a commit or make a commit of, you have to do git add and then give the file name. Okay, now let's check the status again. It says we have committed, it says we have tracked this or staged this, and now we have to commit it. So to commit again, you will use git commit -m for message, and we will say add header or add h1. Another good practice while committing is to keep the message as minimal and as straightforward as possible. So we're just saying add h1. Now let's look at the git log again. Now we can see that we have two commits on the same repository or branch. Okay, now one advantage, as we discussed, that is how we can revert to a specific version of the code, right? So like how we discussed that you can go back to code 1 from code 2 after several days, right? Zooming in, this is visible. Okay, cool. So how do we do that? How do we go back to a certain commit or a certain version of your code, right? So to do that, let's do git log again. So we have to go to this commit now. So what we can do is we can copy this hash, or we don't even have to copy this hash. Just take up the first few characters of the hash or the commit, and we will do git check out. So this will check out or revert the changes to that particular commit. Okay, now we are switching to AF9C4, which is the commit we made earlier. Now if you do the git status again, it says we are at now this particular commit now. So if we open our index.html file, we can see that the index.html is empty, because at this particular commit we only added the index.html but did not have anything in it. So that's why it's empty. Now to check out to the latest version, we can do git check out master. That works as well. So since we were on branch master, if you do git check out a particular branch name, it will go to the latest branch, latest commit that is on that branch. Okay. Now this is done. Let's see how to use GitHub with our repository. So what this will allow is that have a copy of your Git repository on the cloud as well. So this is how you will let other people also contribute to your code base. To do that, you'd have to head to github.com. Now GitHub is just one such provider who lets you do these things, right? There are other people who, such as GitLab, right? That's another popular one. And I believe there are many others like Bitbucket by Atlassian. Yeah. Then Amazon also has its own thing. So we would first create a repository. You can click on, and if you do not have a GitHub account, do create it. I guess only thing you would need to create a GitHub account is to have an email ID. Now let's create a new repository, and let's give it Duolearn site as well. We'll make it public. We'll hit create repository. Okay, now we see some instructions so that we can follow here. So this is to create a new repository on the command line. We do not have to do this since we already have a repository. So what we'll do is we'll push an existing repository from the command line. So to do that, we have to execute this command. Let me zoom this in. Yeah. It says git remote add origin https. What is the link to the repository? So remote means basically remotes are something that are in like repositories that are on the cloud. So we're adding a remote, and this is the name of the remote. We are calling it origin. So this is the most commonly used name for primary origin, primary remote. So after we do this, now our local repository is connected to our Duolearn repository over here. So if I do a git push, so it's telling me that there is no branch called master on my cloud repository. So what we'll do is we'll run this command, which will set up a master branch on our repository. Okay, now if I refresh our repository on GitHub, we will see that we have our code here, right? If you open it, we can see that it has h1. We can also see all the commits we made, right? We added index.html, then we added h1, all of that. Now, how would someone, collaborate to this code, right? So ideally what they would do is click on this here and copy this thing, right? Copy this URL. And what they would do is they'll go to their own projects folder, and they will do git clone and that URL. So if we go to Duolearn site, so if you just look at the folders, you will see that a new folder has been created called Duolearn site. And if you go into that folder, you will see the same index.html that is here. So this is how people can start collaborating with your code base. So it really happens at when you have to work with branches, basically. So the way they can do that is first you'd have to add them as collaborators to your repository, which you can do that going through settings. It's going to ask password. Okay, so once you come to settings and collaborators, you can invite people to repository. So you can search by their GitHub username full name or email, and it will send them a collaboration request, which following through they can be able to collaborate your own to your repository. Okay, now let's explore the idea of branches, so we know how to actually collaborate, right? Okay, so this is your branch master. Okay, and let's say we have two people working on the same project. So what they would do is they would create a copy of master. Let's say it's copy 1. And another person would create another copy called copy 2, right? These are again deviated from master, right? So they both have a common ancestor or common base, which is master. So they both make some changes, and then they both kind of like, you know, merge to master again. So that's how the idea of collaboration that you can visualize with Git. Okay, now let's see how we can create, you know, branches, which then, you know, like deviates from the base branch, and you can make changes and then merge into master. Okay, to create a branch, right, you can either do it through GitHub directly, like if you go to your code, I believe there's a way to create a branch through the UI as well. So how you would do it on a command line is you would say git check out -b. -b means a branch, and you would say let's say this person who wants to contribute, he's going to do a particular change, right? So essentially he would name it as that change as the branch name. So it could be something like adding title. Okay, now if you do git status, we will see that we are on branch adding title, which means we are now deviated from the main master branch to the copy of the code, which is adding title. Okay, now at this branch, what we'll do is we will now change the h1. So this is the page where they add title, right? So how do you add a title? So I'll just create a HTML template like this, and we'll place this h1 in a body. We'll give the title Git and GitHub tutorial. Okay, great. Now we will do the whole thing again, like check the status, what we have changed. We will see that we have modified index.html, so we're gonna add that commit saying add title. So if you push this, so it says this branch is again not on the remote, which is our GitHub repository. So we can have this here by doing a git push. So if I refresh here, I can now see that there is another branch called adding title. If we go to that branch and check out the index.html, we see we have a different code now. Now how do we add this to master? So to that we can do something like this. We'll check out to master, and we will do git merge adding title. Now if I open up the index.html here, we see that we have all this new content again. Now this is not again on the branch we were earlier, which was adding title. Now this is on the master itself. So if I refresh this page again, okay, we have to push it here so that it also reflects on the repository on GitHub. So we'll do again a git push. Refresh this, yep, and we can see the new code. So this is how you would collaborate. So what the other person would also do is create another copy from the master and then work on something else, and then you merge it, right? And you will be able to see the updated code. So the great thing about this is that you can easily track what are the changes instead of manually copy pasting the changes you would need from what other people have worked on. Okay, so yeah, so what happens now, there is something called conflict that happened during merge. Now let's see how that could happen. Okay, let's say we have a team where two people are going to work on the same thing. Okay, so they create a branch like Git Check Out -b modify header, modify heading, and they put their name at the end of the branch as well, so it's easy to identify who created this branch. Let's say we have someone named Pavan, so he's going to modify the heading in his branch. So he checks out to a new branch, modify heading, and he's going to modify the heading now. So he says let's not have Git and GitHub tutorial, let's have just Git tutorial, and he saves it, and he's going to add it what he changed. He's going to commit that, hey, I changed the heading. Okay, and yeah, so that's what he does. Now let's check out to master. So now we have another person who's also going to modify the heading like so. So he's going to first check out to a new branch, modify title, and he's going to give his name as well. Let's say that's Dev. Now he's also going to edit the same thing, edit the title, edit the heading, right? He says let it be just GitHub tutorial, right? And he adds that, he commits with the same thing, saying, hey, I changed the heading. Okay, now first thing is that you would first want to merge one of these changes, right? So let's check out to master. So let's look at the code at what we have in master. It says Git and GitHub tutorial. Now I am going to merge Pavan's branch, right? Pavan's branch is modifying heading Pavan. So I merged it, and if I look at the updated code now, it says Git tutorial. Okay, cool. Now since another person also worked on the title and we also want their changes to be there, so what we'll do is we'll also merge their branch. Now we have something interesting now here. It says conflict. There's conflict in content while merging this file. So it says automatic merge failed since two people worked on the same thing. The Git says I cannot fix the conflicts. So it cannot fix conflicts when two people worked on the same things. That's why Git needs human intervention now to decide which changes to keep. Okay, I see a question by Soumya. He's asking why didn't I push. So this is just like a demonstration that we're doing on local right now, but yes, in real world you would probably push this, and then people will work on it, then push it again to the main repository, then you would merge them. So this is the exact version of that, but happening just to keep the concept straight, we're just doing it on the local. Okay, now it says we have conflict. It says fix conflicts and then commit the result. If you check the status of the current repository, it says we have unmerged paths. So these, it says both modified. It means there are conflicts in index.html. So let's look at the code, what's happening here. So now you can see we have some things like this. So we did not obviously write this code. So this is something added by Git while trying to merge it. So it says, hey, this is the change that coming, or that is present, current change. And this is the content that is coming from this branch, modify title dev. So which one do you want to keep? So if you want to keep this one, you will have to remove this one. If you want to keep this one or this one, you'll have to remove what's coming from this modify title devs branch. So in order to do that, on VS Code you can click any one of these options, but if you want to do directly without accepting these options, what you do is you would remove the code or remove the change you do not want. Let's say we want to keep the current change. You would remove this, right? Like this and this. And now you have one change, the final change. So now what you'll do is we will add that, and you will do a commit doing merge modify title dev. So just telling what you did in this commit. In this commit, what we did is just merge that branch, right? So we'll commit this. And now if you push this and check it out, we will have Git tutorial. So yeah, okay, you can also pull. So Samyanil says you can also pull right instead of merge. Yes, you can also do that when the branch you want to merge is also on remote. So it works something like this. So let's say we have a branch, add body text, and we have this. So let's make some changes in the HTML, right? We will add some body in the here, like in a paragraph tag. This is a tutorial on Git, and we push this. Let me also show how you can do the same stuff with VS Code's integrated Git thing as well. So the way you will do it is first you'll have to select which changes you want to commit. So to do that, you will have to click on plus icon here on which files you want to make, or on which file you want to commit. So we'll do this, and it says it's staged, which means if you commit, this is the file that is going to commit, and you'll give a message to it, add body text, and you'll commit this. Okay. Now you can also push with here. Okay. Now if you go here, refresh, excuse me, you will see we have a branch add body text. So we have the paragraph tag we just added. This is a tutorial on Git. So now we want to merge it to master. So we can do that. Check out master, git pull add body text. Yep. So this is how you can also merge from the branches directly from GitHub as well. So if someone had made some changes to this, you can directly pull it into your master without actually having to go to that branch, then pulling it, then merging it to the master. So this is, you can also use it like a shortcut. Okay guys, so we have covered most of the basic stuff. So we covered how to initialize a GitHub repository, how to commit changes, how to push your local repository to GitHub, how to merge changes, how to create branches, then again how to resolve conflicts on merging. So we've learned all this, along with it how to merge repository directly from remote. So I hope you found all of these things to be useful, and do use Git when working on your projects. Even if it's your personal project, keep everything like an incremental changes. Thank you, Sumyanil. So with that, we will end the stream now. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining.